I have a post-viral cough that sounds like I have tuberculosis right now. I'm not infected.
You might have been through your CPAC.
Good evening. Welcome to the December 3rd, 2018 meeting of the Stillwater City Council. I will call the meeting to order and ask you to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Before we get started, just want to remind you, if you have public comment on an agenda item not scheduled for public hearing or a public comment for the public hearing, you do need to sign up with one of these forms and have it to Patty as we start here. So I've got a couple already, but if you want to speak on any of these items tonight, please sign up and let us know. We will get started first with our proclamations. We'll start with the Wreaths Across America proclamation. If I could have representatives from Wreaths Across America please come forward. I'll go ahead and read the proclamation, then I'll allow you to speak. Whereas Wreaths Across America project supports an annual December tradition of donating, transporting, and placing Maine balsam fir remembrance wreaths on the graves of fallen American soldiers, and whereas this tradition started 25 years ago with the placement of 5,000 wreaths on the graves of fallen soldiers buried at Arlington National Cemetery, and whereas Wreaths Across America has placed nearly 4 million wreaths on the graves of fallen soldiers buried at Arlington and at cemeteries in all 50 states, and whereas the mission and work of the Wreaths Across America project to remember, honor, teach is recognized annually by resolution of the United States Congress, and whereas on December 15, 2018, Wreaths Across America will honor fallen soldiers with wreath-laying ceremonies at Arlington and at over 1,200 cemeteries in all 50 states, and whereas local civic groups will be conducting these activities at Fairlawn Cemetery in Stillwater on that date. Now, therefore, I, William Joyce, Mayor of the City of Stillwater, do, on behalf of myself and the City Council, commend the efforts of Wreaths Across America volunteers nationwide and declare December 15, 2018 as Wreaths Across America Day in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Mayor Joyce and City Council members, we thank you for your support of Wreaths Across America and invite you and everyone in our community to be there December the 15th at Fairlawn Cemetery east of Stillwater.
Great, thank you. I'll present you with this proclamation here real quick.
This is Sally Smith, who is our treasurer.
Thank you all for being here and for your work on the Wreaths Across America project. Thank you.
What
Excellent.
time is that event?
It starts at 11 o'clock.
11
At 11?
On the 15th.
By 10:30 for party.
Yeah, it was pretty full last year.
Last year.
Yeah.
We're hoping to have over 500 people.
Great.
Okay.
Excellent.
10:30.
Thank you. Okay, our second proclamation is for Census Day. Do we have census representatives, or are you here for census?
I'm a subcommittee chair for regulating students.
Okay, great. Well, I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Excuse me.
I'm part of the committee as well.
Okay, great. Whereas Census Day is April 1st, 2020, and whereas census data is needed to ensure fair congressional representation and for redistricting of state legislatures, county and city councils, and voting districts, and whereas more than $300 billion per year in federal and state funding is allocated to states and communities, and whereas the 2020 census creates jobs that stimulate economic growth and increased employment opportunities in our community, and whereas the information collected by the census is protected by law and remains confidential for 72 years, and whereas the City of Stillwater Mayor and Council recognize the importance and value of counting each and every Stillwater resident in the 2020 census, And whereas the City of Stillwater agrees to partner with the U.S. Bureau of Census by forming a complete count committee representing government, education, media, business, social services, and other community partners with the overall goal to provide awareness and information for a complete count. Now therefore, I, William Joyce, Mayor of the City of Stillwater, do hereby proclaim Stillwater's commitment to partnering with the U.S. Census Bureau to help ensure a full and accurate count in 2020. Thank you both for being here and for your service on the committee.
You want-
Please.
My name is actually Jason Schilling, and I'm the mayor of Perkins. And I want to thank all of you for supporting this. This is a pretty big deal. I know for Stillwater and the entirety of Payne County, it's a very big deal for my community and all the small communities throughout Payne County. So thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Great.
Okay, that takes us down to item 4, the consent docket. Counselors, questions, comments, or motions regarding the consent docket?
Motion to approve the consent docket. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the consent docket is approved. I was going to sit there and stare and wait for our 5th vote, but we don't have that tonight. I guess along those lines, out of order on the agenda, Counselor Jaloski is not with us today because of some medical procedures for her son, and we certainly send our best wishes out to Counselor Jaloski and her family and her son in that procedure. All right. Item 5. Just making sure, Stephen, I have you down 5C, but did you mean 7C? Okay. Okay. I was confused there for a second. That takes us to item 7, public hearings. Item A, receive public comment regarding a request for specific use permit for property addressed as 423, 424, 501, and 505 South Gray Street and 514 South Pine Street. This is CC-18-135. Mr. Dortmund, did we have good notice on this item?
Yes, sir.
Mr. McNichol?
Lance Gross from Development Services will provide the information on this report.
Thank you. The SUP is for the purpose of constructing single-family structures in the RTM zoning district. There are 5 individual lots. 3 are contiguous. The contiguous one is on the east side of Gray, and there's also one on the west side of Gray. And the last one is on Pine. It's on the west side. This location is north of 6th, and it's basically south of the Greek District. And the highlighted lots in red are the similar type projects that have been approved over the past number of years. I think as far back as 2011. Thanks. And here's an expanded view showing basically from Orchard all the way to Blakely. Some of the similar type projects within this area, south of 4th and north of 6th. And this is a standard or typical site plan that they've submitted. And you can see it's basically a 6-bedroom, single-family detached, approximately 3,000 square feet, and the parking is in the front, which means basically almost the entire front yard would be concrete. And these are treated just like a single-family home. And it's similar to some of the other projects that have been approved in the area in the past. Typically for parking, for residential 3 or more bedrooms, it requires 1 space per bedroom. Now I'll just go back, and you can see over off of Walnut on the east side, the red highlighted area, it's a similar type project, but the parking was actually placed in the rear. This is an elevation that looks like what could be constructed. You can see the parking's in the front, and it's a residential character with 6 bedrooms. This is Gray Street looking to the south. There are 3 single-family residential structures on the left-hand side or east side of Gray. Those structures will all be removed, and the new single-family structures would be installed or constructed. And the first house on the right side of the photo shows the other structure where the new structure will be constructed. And this is looking from Pine, looking to the west-northwest. And the blue house or gray house there in the center is this subject site, which will be removed and replaced with a new structure. And the house directly to the right of this is a similar type development. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Counselors?
I just have a question. You want the picture, the first picture you showed of the already constructed building, doesn't have very many windows?
Correct.
Every bedroom has a window.
Yes, I believe that is required by code, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Just interesting that you can't see them.
Yes, and it may be because of the kitchen area might be, fronting that first level. That's possible. So,
Well, I'm sad to see all the grass gone.
yeah.
Quite a loss.
Yeah. Yeah, like what was mentioned earlier, one of the projects that they came in before, it was discussed with them, and they actually relocated the parking to the rear.
Could this project move the parking to the rear?
It's possible they could look into that. Yeah. I mean, that could be one of the requirements. So.
And you said that that duplexes were already allowed as part of the zoning designation currently. What's the big difference? I mean, between making a duplex and making one of these large bedroom, multi-bedroom structures?
Correct. The difference between the two, a duplex would basically have a separate kitchen for each unit, both sides. These proposed 6-bedroom units would have like one shared kitchen for everyone. So.
And then with the duplex, you're not required to have a parking spot for every bedroom. Is that correct?
The duplex, if it's more than, with a duplex, you're required to have two spaces per unit.
Okay.
So
4 there versus the 6 we're talking about here.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And I know this is this may be outside of your realm, but what is, I guess what I'm asking is what's the big difference between making a duplex and making one of these multi-room houses? I mean, is it just because that's what the market is clamoring for right now?
According to the applicant, that's what they're stating, that it's a popular option. Yeah.
Okay.
Why is a special use permit required for this structure in this zoning classification?
It's RTM zoning, residential 2-family and multifamily, which basically allows for duplexes and also small multifamily structures.
Is this not a small multifamily structure?
Right.
It's considered to be an SUP is required for a single-family home, and these are treated as single-family homes, basically said 6-bedroom homes.
But they're not single-family homes.
Well,
Because those
They're
were
not-
within the
yeah,
zoning, right?
yeah.
Well, I guess that's my question. I mean, if it was a 2-bedroom single-family home, it would still require a special use permit, correct?
Yes.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so even though it's ostensibly a lower, what's the word I'm looking for?
Density.
Yeah, a lower density or a lower intensity of use than the existing zoning, it still requires a special use permit in this area.
That is correct.
Are the code requirements of a single-family dwelling being built here less than they would be if this was a small multifamily unit?
Probably not. One of the things that's required for, oh, yes, in duplexes would require a common firewall between the two units as well.
Okay, but I mean, if you were building a 6-unit apartment building instead of a 6-bedroom house that is functionally a 6-unit apartment building, you would have commercial building requirements and sprinklers and that sort of thing that would be required?
Yes.
But so by allowing a 6-dwelling unit, single-family home, the builder is then allowed not to have to put sprinklers and all that sort of stuff in here. Do we have any, I mean, this is a problem for me because these are basically rented out as per room. They're not rented to a family. They're rented by room to individual. I mean, am I off base in terms of the way these are used?
You're right.
And I think, isn't there a number of rooms where it becomes a boarding house? And then at that point, no, that's not in the code anymore? It is?
Paula, could you approach the bench?
Now you've done it.
I'm confused as to how this happens. Because to me, there is a code requirement. If this was a 6-unit or even a 4-unit apartment complex, there would be requirements because of the public policy we have in ensuring the safety of the folks who live in this place. But we're allowing a semantic change, and I guess fewer kitchens, if that's really the idea. But these are basically rented out as apartments. I don't understand why they're treated separately.
They are treated separately both in the zoning code and in the building codes based on the number of independent dwelling units. Kitchen, bathroom, and bedroom facilities in one unit that's separate from all of the other like units in a structure. This is one single-family house. Some family with 4 or 5 children could move into it, so therefore it is not treated any differently because it has one kitchen. It does not have a kitchen for each bedroom bath combination or 2 or 3, however many. So under zoning and the building code, it is treated differently. The building code that oversees this is the International Residential Code. That oversees 1 and 2 family dwellings. You get more than 2 family dwellings, then you're talking the International Building Code, which is the greater firewalls, the sprinkler systems, those additional requirements, because the number of not only occupants, but kitchens that have the fire capability increases.
Okay. That does make some sense. The kitchens, I guess, as fire hazards. Do these all have 6 bathrooms as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I was on the Land Development Committee several years ago when we talked about this, and it's really, really tough. Because, as Paula said, you know, you have a large family and you want a bedroom for every person. You're going to have a lot of bedrooms. And so I'm completely on the idea of, I mean, I think these are not an improvement in the neighborhood at all. They're constructions, they change the whole culture. I wish that we could do something different. I would love to see the parking in the back, and I would require that. I mean, I would suggest that we require that. But it's really hard to get around.
From our standpoint?
Yeah.
If I may, the 3 contiguous lots that Lance mentioned earlier that had the parking in the back that were previously developed, If we could have the screen popped up again, the 3 contiguous lots on the east side of Gray Street, that is such a similar configuration to the very right-hand side of the screen. You see those lots with the parking in the back. It's almost an identical configuration there lot-wise. However, the new lots on Gray Street, they're even larger than the ones that are providing parking in the back. So that is a
So it
valid
would be an
concern.
impossible- I mean, it wouldn't be,
It would not be
Ridiculous.
impossible, correct.
I mean, my concern's not really, I mean, I
Parking.
think that's fine. I think the parking, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, this is zoned now as residential multifamily, so you could build an apartment complex in it, and you wouldn't necessarily a small one. But, so the character of the neighborhood, I understand what you're saying. My concern is that we're basically let somebody build a commercial 6-bedroom apartment and not follow the commercial 6-building apartment codes. And I get that it's different, and I, you know, there's nothing we can really do about that necessarily, but it's problematic. And I, in a heavy rental community with a lot of college students living here, our concern around safety of these places, you know, I think should be addressed in some way with these moving forward. But given, I would assume the status of the code, it fits the code, there's not a whole lot we can do about that.
Under the current conditions of the code, that is correct.
Okay.
As y'all know, if I may, as y'all know, we are happy to investigate any changes to the code that would be brought through the Planning Commission and to the City
Sure.
Council.
Okay. Further questions at this point, Council? Thank you, Paula.
Yes.
I will at this point open the public hearing. I don't have anyone signed up for this item for public hearing, so I will close the public hearing, and I will ask Lance to come back and provide Planning Commission recommendations.
The Planning Commission recommended approval of this application by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, Lance. Councilors?
I would request that you discuss the idea of putting the parking in the back.
Can we, can we approve a specific use permit contingent on parking being located in the back? Is that a possibility here?
Yes, it is. The code outlines the authorities and the breadth of what the council can require when reviewing these specific use permits. If it was a commercial entity, it could be hours of operation, location of dumpster, because that has an impact to the adjacent property owners and how the site itself develops. In this scenario, if you determine that parking in the front, where it is at least possible to investigate the parking in the rear, has an impact to the surrounding neighborhood, especially because there's no on-street parking on Gray Street, so everything has to be off-street, and the paving of the entire front yard, storm drainage, is one of the major considerations there, concerns, then that is a rational finding that can be imposed by the council, meets the specific use permit criteria. A long answer for yes.
What would be the setback of the building from the street? Would there be room for grass?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. In the RTM, I don't have it, but usually in residential areas, it's 20 to 25 feet setback, and that's from the property line. The property line is typically not the back of the curb, because then you have the sidewalk that's within the right-of-way. So you're going to have that additional space that the buildings will be required to be set back anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilors, further discussion or motions?
want to word it, and I'll,
I would make a motion to approve this special use permit contingent upon parking in the back of the property, of the constructed property. All the parking in the back.
second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the specific use permit contingent on investigation of parking in the back, based on a finding of neighborhood impact. right?
Neighborhood impact?
The impact that Front Street parking would have, front of the structure.
Because of
Yes.
the impact, yes. Uh-huh.
Okay, further discussion? Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, that item is approved. That takes us to item 7B, receive public comment regarding a request for specific use permit for property addressed as 1103 South Perkins Road for a medical marijuana dispensary, CC-18-136. Mr. Dorman, do we have good notice on this item?
Yes, sir.
Mr. McNichol.
Once again, Lance DeGrosse from Development Services will provide the information on this application.
Thank you. This SUP is for a medical marijuana dispensary. It is located on Perkins. It's north of 12th Avenue and east of Perkins. The current zoning is CG, Commercial General, which allows a medical marijuana dispensary with an SUP. The zoning to the west is light industrial. To the east is public. To the north and south is also CG. And basically, to give you a little background, this year the Oklahoma voters passed the medical marijuana question, and the city of Stillwater developed regulations, actually an ordinance to regulate these uses. All medical marijuana dispensaries require an SUP, and they're only allowed in the CS, commercial shopping, CB, commercial business, and the CG, general commercial. And they're also allowed in the T5 and T6 districts of the form-based code. And this is a street view looking to the northeast. You can see the parking in the front and the basic retail space in the front of the building as well. Any questions?
Counselors?
Watching the, well, I have had one person contact me, this I think contacted everyone, and we set our rules according to what the state has done.
That is correct.
We have no option to be stricter than the state,
That is correct.
so
Yes.
no changing where things are, how far they are from schools or anything.
Correct. We have to follow the state rules, but we have limited them to certain zoning districts.
Right.
Yes.
That's our only option.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
The schools include things like daycare or YMCA, things like that.
I'll have to ask
No.
John, or, okay,
I don't believe it does. I think the school means school.
okay.
But it wouldn't really matter because we can't
We can't regulate it anyway.
limit it based on whether it's a school or a daycare or a hair salon, for that matter.
Well, don't they have to be 1,000 feet from school?
I believe the state regulations require that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I will open the public hearing. There's no one signed up to speak. I'll close the public hearing. Counselors, further, well, I guess, Lance, Planning Commission recommendations, please.
The Planning Commission recommended approval of this application by a vote of 5-0.
Counselors, further discussion?
So there's no legal recourse we have here to look at other options here or to deny this.
Correct.
Aside from the fact that medical marijuana is an oxymoron. There is no clinical indication for marijuana at all. I won't get on my soapbox.
Feel free.
If you can show me studies, anyone out there, by the way, I challenge you to do it, that shows that marijuana improves outcomes in any disease state, I'd love to read it. I've kind of wrestled with this because, you know, looking at the legality of this, I mean, it seems to fit within all of our, you know, ordinances and everything we've constructed thus far. I have knocked my head against the wall trying to figure out a way to block this. Because again, it's important not to confuse marijuana with CBD. Marijuana contains THC, which is a hallucinogenic, you know, neurohypnotic. And there's no medical indication for it. The federal regulations still look at medical marijuana, or marijuana, as a Schedule I drug, meaning that there is no approved clinical use for it. And that is because that there has never been a study to show clinical significance or statistical significance for the use of marijuana. So I don't know what to do here, really. I don't want to see a medical marijuana dispensary in our town. And again, I'm not demonizing marijuana. There may be a great use for it someday, but we don't know right now. That's the problem with it. It's kind of like doing a study on crack. Let's just legalize crack and see what it does. It's legalizing a drug and asking the questions after the fact. We don't have the data, even the safety data, really, to use this in the general populace. And so with those comments, I don't know what to do here. Do you table this? I don't know.
I would, if I might interject, the state has basically preempted us on about every aspect of regulating this locally, and in particularly in the confines of zoning and land use regulation. If there, as I understand the law as it is written now, and as the proposed 222 pages of legislation that will be introduced at the beginning of the legislative term that will adjust some of this stuff, if your reason for denying the specific use permit is based upon a traditional land use criteria such as fencing or incompatibility with the neighborhood or things like that, it's okay. You treat medical marijuana just like you would any other land use that is permitted. So, and in all candor, what the new legislation talks about is treating it like a pharmacy. And so if it's pharmacy would be allowed in that use category, then a medical marijuana dispensary would have that same, you would treat it the same. If your basis for denying the zoning requirement is because you have an objection to it being a medical marijuana clinic, that may be a problem. Because the statutes are clear that the city can't deny it based solely upon the use, that specific use. So I might caution you to maybe think that through. I know that it's frustrating, and someone with your background, obviously, you understand this way better than we do, but the statutes don't give us a lot of room here.
The statutes weren't written by medical doctors, clearly.
Well, there's probably pros and cons to that. But in this particular case, it doesn't do us a whole lot of.
You are free in this item to vote your conscience, Dr. Wedlake.
Yeah.
Councilors, further discussion or motions?
It's painful to make a motion.
I will not be seconding this motion, more than likely.
All right, I move to approve the specific use permit for CC-18-136.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the specific use permit. Please vote. With a vote of 3-1, the item is approved. Item 7C, receive public comment regarding a request for map amendment and annexation into the corridor redevelopment area for property addressed as 102, 106, 112, 114, 116, 122, and 124 South Main Street, CC-18-137. Mr. Dorman, did we have good notice on this item?
Yes, sir.
Mr. McNichol, I think you're going to throw it to Lance.
It is continually the Lance Gross show tonight in terms of public hearings.
Yes. Yes, and this one's actually the very first one that we've had. It's an annexation and map amendment, and it's not an annexation into the corporate city limits. It's annexation into the corridor redevelopment district, which is basically the form-based code area. So, let's see, the property currently is zone CG. There's CG to the east, and also to the north and also to the south. T5, the form-based code area, is to the west and a little bit to the north as well. The property owner actually, the property owner of this subject site owns property to the west, which he plans on developing. They want to incorporate the entire area that they own, so they wanted to bring in a consistent zoning for the entire site. So this is a view looking to the southwest. Elm is located on the right side of the street view, and Main Street is on the left. And it basically takes in these first 3 lots. And moving to the south, these 4 buildings are also included as well.
Which 4, Lance?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's, I'll try to use the mouse if you can see it. Up to this building right here. That's where it would end. So 1, 2, 3, 4 of these structures. And you can see on that previous slide, there's some vacant property as well. Any questions?
Before we do questions for Lance, Stephen's here, I think, as owner's representative. If I go ahead and open the public hearing and have Stephen come up, and then we can ask owner rep questions. So I'll go ahead and open this public hearing. Mr. Gose.
Good evening, Stephen Gose with Gose & Associates, 113 East 8th, here on behalf of the applicant to answer any questions you all have. Go.
Counselors?
And Lance covered everything, pretty well. They're just trying to get a common plan so that, and it helps with front setbacks on Main Street, being able to pull the buildings up right now. So if we were going to replace what's to the south, we'd have to ask for variances for setbacks, so.
So it's just a matter of how it will look and where it's placed on the ground. And
Correct,
that makes
correct.
it-
Yeah, and with the T5, it kind of opens up, it's just a little more, some people say it's more flexible, some people say it's not, but it sets those design requirements instead of use requirements, really, so.
But it gives you more buildable area on these lots? The setbacks are
Yeah,
smaller?
we still got to meet parking and everything like that, so. Depending on what you do, if it's part of a larger plan that's got a parking deck in it, then yeah, you can cover all of these lots with a building, so.
Counselors, further questions for Ms.?
If we moved all of these into the corridor redevelopment area, when that land was going to be developed, would you have to come back to us? Or would it already be done?
I think we'd only have to come back if we needed a development agreement for some reason, but not for, if we meet the code, then we shouldn't have to.
That would go through the,
Development services.
yes.
But yeah, and I guess if we had to do warrants for canopies or things like that, we'd come back.
Counselors, further questions? Thank you, Stephen. No one else signed up for the public hearing. I'll go ahead and close it. I do have a question for staff before we get to the recommendations. This area wasn't included in the form-based code. The whole frontage on Main Street wasn't included in the form-based code originally, and there's no other piece of the form-based code that touches Main Street, correct? Do we have a reason that we didn't go all the way to Main Street with this frontage originally? Is there?
Yes, sort of. When the form-based code was adopted, it was just primarily looking at areas within proximity to serve the needs of the campus, not the needs of Main Street necessarily. And if you go further south down on Main Street, that's where the Business Improvement District, when it was in effect, it was bounded by. So just taking the parcels on either side of Main Street for the Business Improvement District, we just extended that phantom line on up so that parcels to the west were included in that corridor redevelopment area.
Okay. In having a sort of a section here that would go into form-based code, do you foresee any problems with adjacent properties not being in the code? And, I mean, part of that form-based code area is consistent look and feel, and it's, it's trying to do all that. Well, if the rest of Main Street isn't in that, is that going to create a sort of oddball little section here for 5, 6 properties along Main Street?
And I do not believe so, just because of how these properties are existing in their development. They're up close to the street. The parking is public parking right there in the front on the street, not on the property. So it really goes along with the existing building locations, and parking goes along with the intent of the form-based code.
Okay. Thank you. Councilors, any further questions or motions?
Motion to approve the map amendment and annexation for CC-18-137.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, item 7C is approved. Takes us to item 7D, receive public comment regarding a request for a specific use permit for property addressed at 106 West Elm Street for a medical marijuana dispensary, CC-18-138. Mr. Dorman, did we have good notice?
Yes, sir.
Lance, we'll throw it to you.
Yes, this is the last one. Let's see, the...
Tonight.
Yeah.
Yes, well, true. And I need to clarify something in your staff report. It discussed about the parking requirements, and based upon some information that we've received from the applicant, he actually owns the property to the west, and because of that, he can actually share that portion in the front there and use that as parking. So I just wanted to make that clarification. And let's see. The purple boundary indicates the subject site. And you can see it's a round top or Quonset hut located on the west, and that's in the T5 district. It's used as storage right now, but in front of that, there's a paved area that will be utilized for parking. And, keep in mind for this application, it's a mixed-use development. Let's see, and I'll show you. Well, let me start with this. It's currently zoned CG, and an SUP is required for medical marijuana. CG is located to the north, east, and south, and T5 is to the west. This is a close-up. If you look on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the yellow square. That is the retail space that'll be utilized for the medical marijuana dispensary. The portion behind there to the north is a single-family residence, and it's currently used. It's a two-bedroom unit. The buildings are attached. However, there's no access between the two, which basically qualifies it for a mixed-use development.
Is this a mystery picture? I can't see what you're talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. The yellow hatched area, or the yellow highlighted area, that is the commercial structure.
So within that structure, the south quarter of it is separate, fully separate from the north three-quarters of it?
Yes, I can show you the street view if that might help.
Might.
The green portion is the retail space.
There's a retail storefront there.
Correct.
And then that's walled off from what's behind it as which you access, I guess, from the other side of the street?
Correct, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, there's...
that helps.
So it's two buildings under one roof.
Exactly, yeah. The front commercial structure has a flat roof, and the other one has a gabled roof. And parking for the residential use is in the back. And you can see the paved area on the left-hand side of the picture shows the parking area, which will be used for the commercial space.
Is that paved back there off the road, or is it
It is
gravel?
paved,
Okay.
yeah.
Does parking have to be paved?
Yes, it does. Yeah, and they couldn't park in the front because it would block the sidewalk, and that's against ordinance.
Maybe we could have a requirement there's no parking.
No parking?
There you go, John. Creativity.
Try and bring it on.
like it.
All right.
So, any questions?
I think we're good for now. Thank you, Lance. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Mr. McCollum signed up for this item. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jim McCullum. I live at 712 South Kings, and I'm here representing the real estate property owners to answer any questions you might have about the structures.
Councilors, any questions for Mr. McCollum? Thank you, sir. Lance, what was the Planning Commission's recommendation?
The Planning Commission made a recommendation of 5-0 to approve the application.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Dr. Wedlake?
Well, let me take a step back for Michelle, just in case I get quoted on a few things. So the use for quote-unquote medical marijuana, there has been shown some promise in the areas of chronic pain. Nothing has panned out really, really good. That literature is somewhat variable in its outcomes. And the thing that I get asked about all the time is how it relates to treatment in seizures for people with epilepsy. And I will say that there has been shown some promise in two specific epilepsy syndromes. One, something called Dravet syndrome, and the other is something called Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. Those have both shown some promise with cannabidiol usage, which is a modified marijuana. But again, that research is ongoing. So I said earlier that there was no use. There really is not approved right now, but maybe some promise in the world of Dravet or Lennox-Gastaut syndrome or chronic pain. But again, the problem is we don't know. It's not ready for prime time yet. So anyway, I'm done.
We appreciate that,
You're
Dr.
welcome.
Wedlake. And while we appreciate your expertise, it does not have particular bearing on the subject of our specific use permit here. Council, further comments, questions, or motion, please?
Motion to approve the specific use permit for property addressed as 106 West Elm Street for medical marijuana dispensary CC-18-138.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 3-1, the item is approved.
Just out of curiosity, if I can interrupt for a second, what happens if nobody makes a motion? Do we just sit here for the rest of the night?
Eventually, yes.
Okay, so we just, so eventually.
No,
it has
somebody
to
would
happen.
have to, somebody would
table it.
probably end up tabling it at some point.
Okay. Ammo for future.
All right. Item 8, resolutions. Item 8A, Resolution CC-2018-25, a resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Stillwater, Oklahoma, a municipal corporation, to sign and issue an election proclamation, calling for a general election and a runoff election if needed in the city of Stillwater. Mr. Dorman.
This is our annual election resolution. You're getting it in the first meeting in December because the state of Oklahoma issued the schedule last week, and we learned that there were only 2 election cycles for the entire year of 2019, February, April, and September, November. And since the city's elections are traditionally held in the spring, that put us in the February, April cycle, which means that we needed to get the resolution out tonight. Per that, the filing period would start the 12th and end the 14th. And would allow for the general election to be held on February the 9th. And then if we need a runoff per the charter, that would be held, I believe it's April 2nd.
And which seats is this for?
This would be seats 1 and 2.
Okay.
This is the only time in the election, in the cycle for the election of councilors that there are 2 seats available. The rest of the time, it's 1 councilor seat.
And have we cycled through the recent charter changes so that these are both 4-year terms now?
Yes, this
I don't
will be,
think they were last
going
time.
forward, these will both be 4-year terms.
Okay. Will that get everybody?
Nope, I'm still a 3-year.
Okay.
You're the last one. Actually, yes, it'll be next year will be the end of the cycle.
Because it's my seat and Councilor Jarowski's.
Okay. Okay, counselors, comment or discussion or motions?
Motion to adopt resolution CC 2018-25.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, resolution CC 2018-25 is adopted. Item 9, ordinances on first reading. Ordinance number 3427, an ordinance amending Chapter 2 of the Stillwater City Code, titled Administration. Article 3, Authorities, Boards, Commissions, Trusts. Division 9, Rural Water Advisory Board. Section 2-349, Membership. Section 2-350, Quorum. And Section 2-351, Officers' Meetings, providing for severability and declaring an emergency. Mr. Dorman.
If you're having deja vu about
I am.
this particular ordinance, you did first read it at the last council meeting. However, in the interim, we added a new section, the section 2-351, which dealt with the meeting schedule. The board wanted to go from a monthly meeting schedule to a quarterly meeting schedule. And so since we added an entire new section, I believed it was necessary to have a second first reading, hence the item that is on this agenda tonight.
Okay. Counselors, questions?
Motion
Motions?
to advance ordinance 3427 to second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to advance the ordinance. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, ordinance 3427 is advanced to second reading. On second reading, ordinance 3420, an ordinance related to airport operations in the city of Stillwater, amending Chapter 8 of the Stillwater City Code, titled Aviation. Article 2, Stillwater Regional Airport Authority, Section 8-19, Definitions, Section 8-20, Created, Section 8-21, Membership, Section 8-22, Officers' Meetings, etc., repealing in its entirety Section 8-24, Reports, amending Section 8-26, Fiscal Affairs, and Section 8-27, Privileges, Operation, and Use, providing for severability and declaring an emergency. Counselors.
Motion to adopt ordinance number 3420.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the ordinance is adopted. Is there a separate motion on the emergency clause?
Mr. Mayor, I would request that you strike the emergency clause. It's my understanding that there will not be a December meeting for the airport authority, so the basis for the emergency no longer exists.
Do we need a motion to table that? Or
No, sir, just don't need to take any further action on
no,
this ordinance.
no further action needed. Ordinance number 3425, an ordinance related to land development in the city of Stillwater, repealing in its entirety ordinance 3393, codified as Stillwater City Code, Chapter 23, titled Land Development Code, Article 13, Overlay Districts, Division 4, titled 12th Avenue Neighborhood Conservation Overlay District, providing for severability. Counselors.
Motion to adopt ordinance 3425.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, ordinance 3425 is adopted. On second reading, ordinance 3426, an ordinance related to land development in the city of Stillwater, repealing in its entirety ordinance number 3394, codified as Stillwater City Code, Chapter 23, titled Land Development Code, Article 13, titled Overlay Districts, Division 5, titled 12th Avenue Neighborhood Mixed Use Overlay District, providing for severability. Counselors.
Motion to adopt ordinance 3426.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the ordinance is adopted. All right, item 10, reports from officers and boards. Mr. Dorman.
Nothing to report, sir.
Thank you. Mr. McNichol.
2 items, sir. Here's the project update from the Water Resources Department. Construction has been completed for 700 feet of water line on Country Club Road between 37th and 44th Avenues. The new water line eliminates 2 dead ends and improves both the reliability of service and the city's ability to maintain quality of drinking water in this rural area. You can learn more about this water project and others on our website.
Excellent.
And we have several new employees this week. In fact, I went up last week and welcomed them in orientation. Shane Kelly, Operations Entry Maintenance Worker. Jared Victor, Operations Entry Maintenance Worker. Julie Reentz, Animal Welfare Officer. Anthony Holloway, Waste Management Attendant. And James Few, Wastewater Treatment Plant Maintenance Mechanic. We welcome those employees to the City of Stillwater.
Welcome. Thank you, sir. Councilor Zanotti.
do. Ring in the holidays with us at our special events this month. We definitely have a lot going on in the city of Stillwater for the month of December. There's Santa visits, free carriage rides, tree decorating, concerts, and more. Stillwater has plenty of fun scheduled for you and your family. And I want to give a shout out to Megan and Sherry for putting a great calendar together on the website, on the Facebook page. It gives a nice order of dates, what's happening, times. There's a good combination of wonderful things we can do for the month of December. So get out and enjoy.
Absolutely. We did a downtown
Last
tree
night.
lighting last night. It was fantastic. There were hundreds of people down there.
There were.
There's a parade coming up on Thursday.
That's right.
That's going to be exciting. Thank you, Councilor Zanotti. Vice Mayor.
I'd like to share an exciting city statistic. Hold on.
That sounds exciting.
During the last fiscal year, the Transportation Department made 1,095 street signs. So when you stop at a stop sign, come to a full stop, look at the stop sign because you're seeing your city government and tax dollars at work.
How many? 1,095?
Yes, 1,095.
That's a lot of street signs.
Not all stop signs, I'm sure.
Not, seems like it.
Yeah.
But they weren't all stop signs.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Wedlake.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to read that for you.
Study of medical marijuana and chronic cough. Are you looking for employment? The city currently has various job openings posted on their website. You can find these jobs by going to stillwater.org and clicking the employment quick link at the bottom of the page. And if you are so chosen to be employed by the city, we will read your name off at a city council meeting. So.
Indeed.
It's pretty exciting. Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the city council meeting. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the city council meeting is adjourned. That takes us to the December 3rd, 2018 meeting of the Stillwater Utilities Authority. I'll call this meeting to order. And I will ask the trustees for motions, comments, questions on the consent docket.
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the consent docket is approved. Reports from officers and boards. Mr. Dorman, can I ask you a question? Do I have to read through these, even though I know nobody has anything on these? It's just tradition.
It's just tradition, but you don't have to. No,
I mean, I know you guys don't have any comments on item 5, right?
I have nothing.
Mr. McNichol?
No, sir.
All right, let's move to item 7. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the Stillwater Utilities Authority meeting is adjourned. I will now call the Stillwater Economic Development Authority meeting to order. Trustees, is there a motion on the consent docket?
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, the consent docket is approved. Anybody got anything for reports? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Please vote.
So confused right now.
With a vote of 4-0, Stillwater Economic Development Authority is adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good Monday evening.